You're listening to Fulfilling Career, Happy Life, the podcast for accomplished professionals who want to identify what's next in their career and make it happen without compromising what matters most. I'm your host, Randi Roberts, an executive and career life coach, and I'm glad you're here. If you want to feel more energized about your work again, this show is for you. So let's get into it. So the topic of the week is connections. And this is obviously one of the pillars in the career satisfaction assessment. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it and see where do you fall on the 1 to 10 scale in terms of connections. But really, almost none of us work in a vacuum. So the connections are everything. If it's at work, with your peers and your colleagues who often will become friends, the leadership of your company, having connections with them is critically important. It might be with your team that reports to you or other key stakeholders or even customers or clients. Like the connections are everything. It's how we accomplish our work. So, it's a really important thing to think about. What's the importance of it for you? And it's no surprise to me that it's one of the elements that is so important in people really being satisfied with their situation. And thinking about it as a boss, it's one of the things that if people don't have it, it could get them to start thinking about greener pastures. So it's important all around. Within the company, most of us want to be part of a team. Even somebody like me that runs my own business, I look for connections and ways to get that kind of community that I need. But really what you get from that within a company is support, either for your initiatives or even for yourself and your own career. Advocacy is so important. If you have advocates within the company, you get opportunities and you see possibilities that you wouldn't see otherwise. And people advocate for the people they feel connected to. Sometimes it's just even about information. Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced feeling like maybe you weren't part of the core crowd at work and there were other people that maybe you felt were more connected and they may have had information that you didn't have access to. So that's something that's really important. And it doesn't feel good if you think other people are getting information that you're not getting. And then just in general, opportunities. They might be business opportunities that you hear about that if you're connected to people, they'll bring them to you, or it might be career opportunities. Really, really important. That's if you're part of a big company, but it's still really important if you're in a small company or if you run your own business like I do. Sometimes if you're in a very small group, you may not have a lot of people around you with whom to share ideas and pressure test solutions to challenges and things like that. So having those connections that you build for yourself can really provide that support that you may need. And just being with like-minded people that may, when I say like-minded, I don't mean that you always agree, but it's people that think about things the way you do and approach things the way you do and maybe have some of the same priorities. That can be tremendous in terms of thought partnership and really expanding your horizons. And sometimes it's just the community in general. It's often surprising to me how when I'm discussing with clients challenges that they're having or questions that they have, they think they're the only ones that ever had that question or dealing with that same thing. And it's amazing what it unlocks just to talk about these things. And that's one of the reasons that group coaching is so powerful. You deal with your own issues, your own questions, figuring out your own path, and you're working through with others as they deal with similar challenges. It unlocks so much. It's very, really, really remarkable to be a part of that process and see that unfold. And you can think about connections from two angles. It's what do you need for yourself to be successful, to feel supported, all the things that you need. But most of my clients and many of you listening are probably leaders within your own organization. And so you think about what do you need from that standpoint? What do you need to create for your own company, within your own culture, and helping people feel connected so that you're creating loyalty and you're retaining talent. Excuse me. That's one of the most important things right now is you hear about this great resignation. How are we retaining talent? It really is, it adds to your bottom line because it costs you a lot if you have turnover. And if people aren't feeling loyal to the company, they're not bringing their best. They're not bringing all their ideas. So it really does impact the bottom line if you create that feeling of connection amongst the people in your team. Now, let's shift a little bit to networking, which is one of the really important applications for those connections now. It's everything these days. And I think it's more important than ever because we're in this environment where people are either working remotely or there's some kind of a hybrid. We're just not around people physically as much as we need to be or as much as we used to be. So you need to sort of compensate for that. And really be a bit more purposeful in how you make those connections. I think in a lot of ways, it's easier than ever to stay in contact with people or reach people that you know that you haven't been in contact with for quite some time. But the interesting thing about that is because it's easier, it's sometimes harder to stand out because there's so much noise. So you have to think about that. What are the ways that you're going to attract attention and bring value and, make those connections in the right ways and the ways that really serve your purposes. And one of the things that's interesting about networking is the best time to do it is before you need it. It makes it so much easier to connect with people that are important to you or were important to you at a different phase of life. If you're just doing it authentically to lay the groundwork, to keep that connection alive without a request, without anything that you need from them. So it's really helpful to develop almost a practice of networking and building those connections. And then you can really have what I call an abundance mindset, bringing it to that. And you can really think about it as making that connection authentically and maybe even making that connection with an idea to pay it forward or pay it back, however you want to look at it. And that's what I mean by that abundance mindset. That energy and that help and that support that you put out there will come back to you. I absolutely believe in corporate karma. So if you think about doing it at a time where you don't need it, and you're really looking to make a genuine connection and hopefully help others, it will unlock some pretty cool things. And, in general, those connections they allow you to support others, but to have some support when times are tough and to share the good stuff when there's things to celebrate. It's everything. Very few of us are loners, even if we're introverted. And I actually consider myself an introvert, which may seem funny because I show up here every week and my work is about those connections. And it's easy for me, truly. I do a good job of networking and it's easy for me to pick up the phone. And I'm delighted when someone calls me and I have an opportunity to help them. But when it comes time to recharging, the extroverts are the people that like to recharge around others. For me, I kind of need to go back to my power station and regroup on my own. And so, it's kind of a funny mix of the ease of networking and what I really need for myself. So those of us that are introverts, get to my point, those of us that may be introverts might just need to work a little harder at it. And so it's important to have a plan. So thinking about networking, a lot of times I'll have a conversation with clients, especially if they've been sort of out of practice with intentional networking, like how do I get started? And it's important to have a strategy, which might sound overwhelming and it doesn't need to be. It's not about having some big business plan around networking. It's just around making a few choices so that you know what you do want to do and what you don't want to do so that you're focusing your energy in the right places that really can serve your purpose. And an approach that works a lot for my clients is thinking about it like concentric circles, like when you're in the early phase of doing some career exploration and maybe thinking ahead to starting a search. The innermost circle might be a very small group of people, like 2 to 5 people that that you can be very open with and do some brainstorming and talk to them about the things that you are thinking about and wondering about and maybe interested in. But, sometimes we have these ideas of, well, this is interesting to me. This brings me energy. It really sort of, lights me up, but I don't know how to turn that into a specific job. Those are the kinds of conversations that are really cool with that core group of people, because you never know where that's going to lead. And all that is an agenda around, hey, can I have 30 minutes of your time? If it's appropriate, you buy them a cup of coffee or a cocktail. If not, you're meeting virtually, but just to pick their brain a little bit. And people usually like to do that. They like to help. So that's a really good place to start. That's the core. And then the next concentric circle out might be a slightly larger group of people. Maybe it's 10 or 15 people. And you would connect with them around talking to them about the specific ideas that you have and the types of jobs that you're looking at. Do they have any other ideas? And a great question to ask is, do they know anybody else you should talk to? I guarantee you, if they have an idea of a job lead that would be good for you or something in their own organization, they will offer it. And in that way, you can get that information without having to ask that direct question, which isn't always comfortable for everybody. So just ask them if they know somebody else that you should talk to. And then that next concentric circle out might be a bigger group of people. Once you have your thoughts formulated and your targets a bit more in mind, these might be people that you go to with for specific ideas within their own companies. You might do some research at that point about particular companies that you think might be a good fit for you. And then you could do some searching within your own network, or one step removed in someone else's network, that might be a connection in those companies. So if you take that sort of a strategic approach in who's my small group and what's my goal there, then go out to the next band, who's in there and what's my goal there, and then you go out to the third one. That's what I mean by strategy. It's not that overwhelming. You just take a stepwise approach to it. It's really, as I said, it's really even more important now that we're in these hybrid work arrangements. The thinking is the same. The implementation might be a little bit different. But one thought that occurred to me recently is, as people are adapting to hybrid work arrangements, because a lot of companies are opening up and people are starting to travel again, there are those of us that really like the environment of working from home. Advantage by never being in the office, because you don't have that easy access for connections. It's not as easy as running into somebody at the water cooler, whatever the version of that is. And just being able to talk for a few minutes on your way to meetings or between place to place. That kind of casual time can really help to build those connections. And so if you're never there, you don't have that opportunity. And sometimes it's just as easy as finding out what day the people that you want to connect with are there, and those are the days that you choose to go in. So sometimes it's definitely worth that extra effort. So what do you do if you're feeling disconnected, which so many of us can now? It's really important to just take some action and unlock that sort of frozen feeling, if you will, and develop a plan that works for you. If you know that you're somebody that's really goal motivated, set the goals. Figure out, even if it's taking one action a day, making a phone call or sending a direct message or an email. It might even be one a week if one a day feels overwhelming to you. But whatever it is, set that goal and plan to hold yourself accountable to that. And it won't be long before you feel like you're in forward motion. And keep in mind, whatever your plan is, you can make mid-course corrections. You start off in a direction and it starts to work for you. Keep going. If you want to make some changes to it, nobody else knows what your plan was. So, be open to making those changes. And I also suggest that you build it into your business goals. For me, I have business goals around the number of one-on-one clients that I see, the number of people in my small group coaching, that kind of thing. But I also have communication goals and outreach goals, for example, around social media and doing these kinds of appearances. So if you build that networking into your business goals, it's much, much easier to hold yourself accountable and keep yourself moving forward. And it won't be long till you've really made a lot of progress to build those connections in a way that allow you to help others. And then when you need help, when the time comes either for a referral for a resource or looking for a new job, the groundwork is already laid, and it's really easy to lean into that. So that's my suggestion around really embracing the connections and using that towards networking for your own benefit and to help others. It just feels good. And speaking of feeling good, the topic that we're going to dive into next week is fun. I was thinking about it today, which pillar do we want to go into next? And then I just had sort of an organic conversation with one of my clients today about how much fun she's having on her new job. So can't wait to tell you more about that. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening to Fulfilling Career, Happy Life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe, follow, rate, and review. Do all the things to show your support for this podcast. It helps other professionals who want to feel more energized about their work again find us. And if you want to take this thinking further, please follow me on LinkedIn, where I share content on a regular basis. You can also get on my email list by downloading the Career Satisfaction Assessment or through my website. All these links are in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. I truly appreciate that you make the time for yourself to listen to the show. See you next week.